Hey, Founders Journey newsletter subscribers. Greg Moran here. Um, Appreciate you joining us this week. We are in the Founders Journey Insights. Forgot to say why you were joining us. We actually produce this every week with the newsletter specifically for our subscribers. So appreciate you joining us. Just a reminder, if you don't subscribe to Founders Journey podcast, you can do it right on this channel on YouTube. We're talking about preparing a startup for an economic downturn. Not a super fun topic, I get it, and I don't mean to be a downer, but it's important. And if you haven't run your company for more than actually 13 years, you haven't been through a recession before. And what we went through during COVID, many of us, it impacted businesses heavily, but it was understood, and it was a real short period of time, and it was scary while it was happening. But it's a little bit different than the kind of the longer duration that we see in a real economic downturn or even a recession. And I don't know. I can't predict whether a recession is going to come, but I can tell you that there's enough of a likelihood where you need to be preparing your startup now, because with strong preparation, you can really make sure that you've got the liquidity to get through it. You can position your business for a real strong rebound when you come out of it, and you can really take advantage of that downturn to grow. If you're thoughtful about the way you prepare. In the newsletter this week, we talk a lot about really what can happen if you don't prepare, right? And this is the downer section. I don't mean here, but if you believe that you're growing fast and a little bit slower growth isn't going to hurt you, or you believe that you got enough cash to carry the company through, or that somehow making cuts or that you feel you're going to hurt the business long term by reacting to a short term down cycle, and you're just going to continue full speed ahead, I really, really caution you. A recession can take a little bit more time than you expect it to, and it really can create some liquidity problems, especially for a startup that may not be very profitable, or is burning cash, or requiring outside equity markets to fund their growth. So, but the things that you can do. And I really encourage you to dig into the newsletter. We talk a lot about building a revised churn and sales forecast. Churn, if you're a SaaS company, churn will get hit. Know that. You are going to lose renewals that you expect. Even if you're a service business, these things are going to happen. Update those churn forecasts. Be more conservative when in who you believe is going to continue with your service for a long time. Update the sales forecast. Give those pipelines a haircut. Take them down. Right? And look at starting to model 10, 20, 30% differences. Take that and then start to build a cash flow forecast. And from that forecast, what you also want to start to factor in with the churn and the sales forecast, what you also want to start to factor in is receivables just taking a longer period of time. People are going to pay slower. That stretches out cash cycles. Start to factor that in. When we went through the COVID recession with my previous company, we were heavily exposed to retail, restaurant, hospitality, and this was an area that really hit us strong, and really, became a significant issue for us. We were fine from a liquidity position, but what we really needed to do was stretch out those payments quite a bit, and it's something that really can affect a company if you don't have strong cash reserves. Third step, and this is where it gets hopeful, build your strategy, right? There are a lot of things that you can really start to do here. Think about those growth targets, bring them down. Sometimes growth targets in a recession can be negative growth. Like, we're not going to decline by more than X. So build the strategy, build layers, multiple layers into your thinking here. If our churn goes up by X, these are the cuts we're going to make. If our revenue starts to fall by Y, then these are the cuts we're going to make. Have layers. You don't need to execute on everything up front, but have layers, because when you get in the crisis, if you get into a crisis, having that plan creates a clear head. So you want to have that plan, build in those layers, look at the ways that you can start to create efficiency. Sometimes in a recession, it does make sense to invest in driving efficiency, because when we talk about that long-term rebound, right? And when you come out of this, you can come out stronger, because if you start to invest in efficiency during a time where the business is naturally just a little bit slower, you can really start to drive up gross margin, start to bring down your cost of goods sold, start to operate just much more efficiently, which sets you up for long-term profitability gains. And then last, if you're so inclined, not every business is going to do this, mine was, if you're so inclined, start to build your M&A shopping list. Not every business is going to handle this well, and some businesses are going to get hit harder than others. Know those businesses that you believe might fall into a liquidity crisis and start to build those shopping lists. It's funny, recessions, they can create some combinations that weren't really on the table before. Be looking for those. Be ready to strike if you're so inclined from an M&A standpoint. During COVID, I think we acquired 4 or 5 companies during that downturn. Next, you want to communicate the strategy and you want to communicate that forecast. This should not be a surprise to people within your company. They should not be surprised that there's a downturn looming. They should not be surprised that things are going to go slow, cash is going to constrict, expenses need to come down. You need to start to communicate that and what the long-term strategy is. So that communication, and then shorten that communication cadence with your company. If you're doing weekly all hands, through that time, if things start to get crazy, move it to bi-weekly. If things get crazier, move it to weekly. Like the communications cadence within the strategy and where you're going and what's happening with your forecast. Are you on plan? Are you off plan? Becomes really important to break the fear and anxiety and uncertainty that people are going to feel. And last, clean out the basement. What I mean by this is, one of the things that you see public CEOs do all the time in a recession is they start to look at the 3 Ps, right? People, process, products, or people, projects, and products. And they start to clean up, right? If you've got low performers, now's your time to take care of it, because if you need to cut expenses, don't wait, right? If you've got underperforming products or underperforming, locations or things like that, now's the time to start getting rid of them. If you've got projects that are lagging, that are kind of floating around the company, we've all got these skunk work projects, narrow the focus, get rid of them, right? This is the time to kind of go clean out the basement and throw everything in the dumpster that you've been wanting to clean out for a while. This is your opportunity to do it, especially, if you are thinking about going public at some point, or you're thinking about raising an next round of financing. The beautiful part with recessions is they always have an asterisk, right? And that creates the justification to do the things you need to do where growth slows, because when you come out of it again, you want to be positioned. So those are the 5 steps. We get into it deep in the newsletter this week. If you haven't, I produced a guide, and you can find the link on the newsletter. I produced a guide called something like the 50 steps to prepare to recession-proof your company. But that's what it is. It's 50 steps to basically recession-proof your company. Get in there. It's free. Just go in. There's a link right in the email. You can go in. It's just a Notion document, so it's pretty simple. So go in and take a look at that, and it gives you 50 really tactical ideas on how to think about it. Again, Greg Moran, Founder's Journey Insight, which is recorded specifically for our newsletter subscribers. If you don't subscribe today to the Founder's Journey podcast, get on there and do it. And hope everyone has a great week, and appreciate you joining us.